Hello, this is Robert Bruce, State Director with Maryland Science Olympiad, and I'm here to talk about the new regional assignments, which we will begin to implement beginning with the 2019-2020 season. We're very fortunate for the participation of schools and students throughout the state of Maryland. Recent years have shown consistent participation from over 80 schools throughout the state, bringing over 120 teams and representing an estimated 2,000 students participating in Maryland Science Olympiad clubs throughout the state. Again, we're very fortunate for this participation, and in order to best account for the number of students participating, we've begun the process of splitting regional tournaments into true geographically defined regions. One of the main driving forces behind this, many of you may remember that we used to run large regionals for most of the students from the state at University of Maryland. Basically, the majority of the state would compete in one large tournament. Both middle and high school would compete on the same day, and the last time we ran this tournament, over 100 teams showed up and participated in regional competition, again, on the same day at the same location. We're very fortunate to the tournament directors and the volunteers which enabled this Herculean effort to be pulled off. However, it represented an overall unsustainable environment. The overall logistics to pull off that tournament were enormous, and we were also capped out on the number of schools and students that could participate at that tournament on that day. In order to account for this, last year we began the process of splitting the overall, what used to be central region, into different regional tournaments. Again, as some of you may remember, our middle school competed at one tournament on one day, and our high schools competed at a different tournament site on a different day. With the addition of one new regional site to our regional set, we are further able to split our regions, and we've been allowed to define truly geographically defined regions into Maryland. I will point out that geographically defined regions is not something that's new to Science Olympiad. It is implemented in many states throughout the country and fits the whole idea of what a region actually is. And so going forward, each region will compete against each other, and the best teams from that region will advance to the state tournament, overall representing where our state tournament will be the best of the best from all corners of Maryland. Here's how our regions will work. Regions are assigned based on the geographic location of the school. It will compete at an assigned regional tournament based on their location. As I will describe again in a moment, our regions are geographically defined to be as fair as possible, accounting for both number of teams as well as the competitive balance of the schools in that region. Each team will compete against other schools and teams in that region alone for individual awards, trophies, and finally advancement to the state tournament. What happens in tournament at one region will not affect a team in another region. They will only compete against the other schools and teams in their region. Finally, the number of advancing slots to the state tournament won't be arbitrarily assigned. It will be determined by the number of schools registered in each region for that season. We've specifically chosen the number of schools, not the number of teams, because we do not want to disadvantage schools that either choose to bring one team only or are unable to field multiple teams. The number of schools is a fairer system in order to properly allot the number of slots to advance to the state tournament. Because the state tournament is fixed at 24 teams for both B and C, the number of slots awarded will be a weighted average of that based off of the number of schools, and we'll announce these numbers in January of the season based off of the enrollment of schools in that given season. The Division C split will begin with 2019 and 2020, and this is the map that will show the split. What formerly used to be called Central Maryland has now been divided into what is roughly an Eastern and Western split, giving rise to the names of Eastern Maryland Region and Western Maryland Region. The Eastern Maryland Region for Division C will take place at Mount Hebron High School, which is located in Howard County, and the Western Maryland Regional for this year will take place at Montgomery College in Germantown, which fittingly is in Montgomery County. For Division B, this is going to be a two-part process. The current season, which is 2019-2020, we will maintain the same regional split that we've had in past years. That is, the Baltimore City region has operated as its own region. They've had its own middle school tournament, and that will continue to operate, where Baltimore City schools will compete at Morgan State. The rest of the state will compete in the same regional, which we are continuing with the name Central Maryland. They will compete at Richard Montgomery High School against each other as one large field. Beginning with 2020, in September 2020, the Central Region will officially be dissolved and will be replaced by a facsimile of what you saw on the previous map, where we will have an Eastern Maryland and a Western Maryland region. The two differences, as I mentioned, Baltimore City will continue with their own region at Morgan State University, and the one difference is that Frederick County has been flipped between the Division B and the Division C map to account for the fact that the teams that compete from that county are different in Division B and Division C, so please take note of that. For the upcoming season, based off your defined region, these will be your tournaments. In Division B, the majority of the state will compete at Richard Montgomery High School. Baltimore City schools will continue to compete at Morgan State University in their own region. And finally, for Division C, the Western Maryland region will compete at Montgomery College, Germantown on February 22nd, and the Eastern Maryland region will compete at Mount Hebron High School. We will continue to evaluate these regions moving forward, and if there are significant changes that necessitate changes in how we define these regions, we will be as transparent and straightforward as we can in that assessment. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please do contact the state office. And thank you so much for participating in Maryland Science Olympiad.